Good evening and welcome to ILTV Weekly. I'm Steve Leibowitz, and with me is former Knesset member Dr. Einat Wilf and former Knesset member and Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon. Just on the eve of the Hanukkah holiday, the State of Israel was given an unwanted present by the UN Security Council in the form of Resolution 2334, condemning Israeli settlement policy. The biggest blow for Israeli diplomacy was the U.S. decision to abstain rather than veto the motion. Before we begin our discussion, let's hear the explanation of the U.S. vote from its UN ambassador, Samantha Powers.
It is because this forum too often continues to be biased against Israel, because there are important issues that are not sufficiently addressed in this resolution, and because the United States does not agree with every word in this text, that the United States did not vote in favor of the resolution. But it is because this resolution reflects the facts on the ground and is consistent with U.S. policy across Republican and Democratic administrations throughout the history of the State of Israel that the United States did not veto it. At the same time, the Prime Minister has said that he is still committed to pursuing a two-state solution. But these statements are irreconcilable. One cannot simultaneously champion expanding Israeli settlements and champion a viable two-state solution that would end the conflict. One has to make a choice between settlements and separation. We believe, though, that continued settlement building seriously undermines Israel's security. Some may cast the U.S. vote as a sign that we have finally given up on a two-state solution. Nothing could be further from the truth. None of us can give up on a two-state solution. We continue to believe that that solution is the only viable path to provide peace and security for the State of Israel and freedom and dignity for the Palestinian people.
Danny, Samantha Powers' explanation seems plausible, does it not? I mean, how can Prime Minister Netanyahu, on the one hand, champion a two-state solution, or say that he does, while pushing for the regulation bill on settlements?
Well, her explanation is truthful, but it's not the whole truth. The United States have never allowed the United Nations to gang up on Israel. And it's not that they did not disagree with us. And she was right. Successive American administrations did not agree with the Israeli settlements policy, by the way, by Israeli governments from left and right. However, they always said that the UN is not the forum to discuss it. The issue of the settlements should be discussed, between the parties, direct negotiations without preconditions. And this was an American, I would say, principle that was never broken until last Friday.
Well, maybe the resolutions bill is kind of breaking the rules of the game.
It is, and I think it's very much contrary or counter to American interests, because the United States also did veto these resolutions because they did not allow the UN to come in between the parties. By this, having the United States going out. The US always wanted to be the one that runs the show here because it allowed it and it gave it a lot of leverage and a lot of prestige. So on the one hand, allowing the UN in, it's against American interest. And also, on the merit of it, and this was also always the explanation of the Americans, was that if the United Nations Security Council gets a resolution which is one-sided, biased towards the Palestinians, they will never have any incentive to make any concessions in the future, on the one hand. On the other hand, it will push Israel into a corner, so Israel will not be inclined to make any concessions. So it's very bad, and it has nothing to do with the issue of settlements, because we have proven, and to your first question, the settlements are reversible. We have proven it in Gaza, and also there are 4 settlements in the North Samaria that during this disengagement were also evacuated. And as long as the Palestinians do not come, with good faith to negotiate, Israel should not limit itself to anything.
All right, Einat, while everyone from opposition and from the coalition was shouting Gewalt, and this is a terrible thing, this is a disaster for Israel, and so on, you actually had an interesting and very well publicized take on the positive aspect of the UN resolution as it relates to Western Jerusalem. Could you explain to our viewers?
Yes, the purpose of the resolution was really to emphasize the illegality of the settlements. The whole resolution is about trying to cement in international law that the settlements are illegal. As a result, the resolution takes pains to emphasize what is not legal and therefore kind of emphasizes what is legal. So the resolution calls everything beyond the Green Line, beyond the armistice lines, including Jerusalem, illegal. It calls it occupied Palestinian territory. This is clearly something that does not make us happy, but it does mean that it recognizes West Jerusalem, and of course Israel within the armistice lines, as legal. And what this does is this is the most resounding United Nations Security Council affirmation of the idea that West Jerusalem is legal Israel and therefore can serve the capital of Israel and the place for all the embassies. And I wrote that this could be a legal basis for a Trump administration to say, look, no country in the world disputes that West Jerusalem is legal and is Israel. And therefore, in moving the U.S. Embassy there, we're not doing anything that is very dramatic. And I think that is one unintended consequence of this resolution. Until this moment, there was always kept the fiction of Jerusalem as the corpus separatum, as Resolution 181 of the General Assembly was, the partition one. But when you call East Jerusalem, which was also part of the corpus separatum, you call it Palestinian, you're essentially saying it's no longer a separate area, it's Palestinian occupied territory. Granted, we don't like that, but it kills the corpus separatum concept, which means that it should also be killed for West Jerusalem. We cannot have a situation where Israel is judged by 1947 and the Palestinians are given the benefit of 67. Either both sides have no rights in Jerusalem, or both sides get their rights, and all countries should move their embassies to West Jerusalem, which no one disputes is legally Israel's.
And indeed, we had a period of time in the until I think the early 80s where there were at least some foreign embassies in West Jerusalem, right, Danny? I mean, could you see a situation where embassies come back en masse after following the United States and started opening embassies in the western side of the city?
I hope so, but at this point I think it's just a wishful thinking. I think it will suffice if Trump will transfer or move the American embassy to Jerusalem. But just to make reference to what Einat said, which is really very interesting, is that she sees the half full glass. The empty side of the glass is that it takes away East Jerusalem, the Kotel, the Western Wall, and the Temple Mount. In both cases, in 2000, Ehud Barak offered to Arafat. In 2008, Annapolis, Ehud Olmert offered to Abu Mazen, was a shared sovereignty over the Temple Mount, which is, the most important historic place for the Jewish faith. What really scuttled the both offers was the Palestinians' demand for exclusivity over the Temple Mount. And I believe there is something much deeper behind that, because they know, Jerusalem kept the Jewish people for 2,000 years as a people.
Right.
So now we must keep Jerusalem, and what is Jerusalem? Basically, it's the Temple Mount. The Palestinians understand that severing the connection between Israel and the Temple Mount, beginning may be a slippery slope of us, not having the raison d'etre of being here in our homeland.
All right, well, before moving on to Prime Minister Netanyahu's reaction to the resolution, let's hear these brief comments from the Israeli and Palestinian ambassadors.
Let me repeat that the Council has finally chosen to act is significant after years of paralysis, as is the fact that this resolution has been adopted with majority support, overwhelming majority support. But this step requires vigilant follow-up if it is to be meaningful, to stem further deterioration and salvage the two-state solution from relegation to history's archives. Urgent efforts are needed to reverse the dangerous negative trends on the ground and to advance our collective efforts to end the Israeli occupation that began in 1967 and achieve freedom, rights, and justice for the Palestinian people, including the Palestine refugees, leading to Palestinian-Israeli peace and security, as well as the goal of Arab-Israeli peace. After years of following the law to be trampled and the situation to spiral downward, today's resolution may rightly be seen as a last attempt to preserve the two-state solution and revive the path for peace, to keep the hope alive.
We overcame those decrees during the time of the Maccabees, and we will overcome this evil decree today. We have full confidence in the justice of our cause and in the righteousness of our path. We will continue to be a democratic state based on the rule of law and full civil and human rights for all our citizens, and we will continue to be a Jewish state, proudly reclaiming the land of our forefathers, where the Maccabees fought their oppressors and King David ruled from Jerusalem. This holy book, the Bible, contains 3,000 years of history of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. No one can change this history.
Well, Einat, the Palestinian ambassador was actually very pragmatic, was he not? I mean, he said the resolution may help save the two-state solution.
What I find personally annoying in the speech as well, many other resolutions, is the notion that the Palestinians have agreed to a two-state solution many times over, and damn, it's only the settlements that made it impossible. And of course, when you look at the entire history, from Balfour to Peel to partition in 47 to all subsequent efforts at agreements, Camp David, Olmert, even with Netanyahu, you see that at the core of the conflict is what he very gently called justice for the Palestinian refugees, which is a code name for we still want all of Palestine. We still want it to be fully Arab.
Millions of returnees coming back to their homes in Yaffo.
So
and
fundamentally, throughout history, the Arab Palestinians have never accepted the two-state solution as the United Nations envisioned, as in the Jewish state and the Arab state. So the settlements certainly don't send a message of goodwill, but they are reversible, and they are not the reason we do not have a two-state solution. The reason to date has been the inability of the Arab Palestinians to actually say, yes, you, the Jewish people, have a right to be here too. Your right is not superior or exclusive. Our right is not superior and exclusive, so let's share. They have not been able to say that to date.
Danny, Israelis are understandably upset that the UN resolution denies Jewish history, denies the Jewish state rights in the land of Israel. Why does our argument gain so little traction in the world community?
Well, that's the whole story about what I call the Arab automatic majority, Arab and Muslim automatic majority. Out of 193 member states in the United Nations, there are 22 Arab, 57 Muslim, and if you add what used to be the non-aligned, it's called the Group of 77, although they compose now 120. Everything that they want to pass does pass against us. And if we go back to this first point, this is why the United States always understood that this is not the forum really to treat Israel fairly or to be able to move further any type of negotiations.
But doesn't the world realize that it's kind of an absurd notion to reject the Bible, I mean, to reject Israel's historic place in the land of Israel?
Well, I don't know how many European countries really refer to the Bible as anything that, to be based on their policies. But more than that, I think it's also an inertia because the Arab countries, certainly in the 70s and before, used their economic clout, energy boycott and all that. And since then, the entire world was just bowing to the Arab demands, the Arab pressure, and this, I believe, is still the case.
All right, let's go on to the Netanyahu reaction. The Prime Minister reacted angrily to the Security Council vote, lashing out at those who voted yes, but saving his harshest criticism for President Obama and the U.S. for presumably stabbing Israel, a friend, in the back. Netanyahu summoned diplomats from the offending nations and had this to say.
Over decades, American administrations and Israeli governments have disagreed about settlements, but we agreed that the Security Council was not the place to resolve this issue. We knew that going there would make negotiations harder and drive peace further away. And as I told John Kerry on Thursday, friends don't take friends to the Security Council. I'm encouraged by the statements of our friends in the United States, Republicans and Democrats alike. They understand how reckless and destructive this UN resolution was. They understand that the Western Wall isn't occupied territory. I look forward to working with those friends and with the new administration when it takes office next month.
Donnie, while the United States was abstaining, President-elect Donald Trump, who will be in office in just about 3 weeks' time, was busy tweeting that who cares about the UN? We'll support Israel. We'll overturn this decision. We'll back Israel fully. So why is Netanyahu so hysterical? Just wait a few more weeks. Trump will come into office and everything will be fine.
Well, because, Steve, is that it does create some dynamics. And the UN, I have maintained for a long time, is the biggest delegitimizer of Israel, has been for many years. Now, Trump, once he gets into the White House, he cannot repeal these UN resolutions. It's a UN resolution, Security Council. However, the significance of the change of guard in the White House is that he can put a stop to a dynamics, to an escalation of resolutions that can put more and more pressure on Israel.
There's no operative decision here, though.
Exactly. It's under Chapter 6.
They're not going to send troops and force us to...
Right. Right. It's under Chapter 6, which is not enforceable. However, this is always the preamble to Chapter 7. For instance, in 2003, before the the Iraq war against Saddam Hussein, there were 16 UN Security Council resolutions against Saddam Hussein before the invasion took place. So this is the danger here, is the escalation, the dynamics, and again, of course, it creates an entire atmosphere.
Well, they don't
which
have
is
time to
anti-Israel.
pass another 15 resolutions against us
I don't
anyway.
think so.
Einat, it seems to me that Netanyahu is flailing in all directions. He's publicly blasting Obama. He's recalling ambassadors from places like the Ukraine and Senegal, summoning ambassadors for a dressing down. Can any good come of this?
I understand the theory behind this. It's a tantrum strategy. As a mother to 3-year-olds, I can tell you it's very effective at times at kind of, at deterring. I think the notion is, especially looking at the spirit of the times, looking at a Putin, looking at a Trump, that if Israel kind of demonstrates that it's angry enough, that will be part of the calculation of countries as they consider their votes in the UN. It's a bet. I don't know that I would make it. I don't know that I know that it would not be my policy, but that's the theory behind how he's behaving.
Well, I was actually hoping that on Friday evening, as we were heading towards the historic vote, that because of the friendship of President-elect Trump and Putin, that the Russians would step in and they would veto the resolution.
would have been an
But that wasn't
historic
gonna
twist,
happen.
absolutely.
What good does it do to cancel a meeting, for example, with Theresa May? I mean, she's a friend of Israel by all accounts. She's a person that doesn't see things exactly eye to eye with us. Why cancel a meeting with her?
I think it's a mistake. Also, the same thing is canceling a meeting with the Prime Minister of China. China, and Britain, they need Israel. I'm saying it in an understatement, at least as much as Israel needs them. So by actually boycotting meetings with them, we punish ourselves more than
He's
anything
talking
else.
also, Einat, he's talking about boycotting technology, Israeli technology. We're going to cancel, we're not going to sell them any of the high tech. I mean, isn't that cutting off our nose to spite our faces? I mean, is that a way to win friends and influence people?
It's a high-stakes strategy that risks undoing many gains that we've had in recent years, even decades, in order to make a point. Again, I would not do it, and I would not do it specifically because this resolution is about the settlements. And no one supports them. We can tell ourselves a story, we can talk about blocks, but no one has ever supported them, no one supports them, no one will support them. So putting all of Israel's might, anger, relations, diplomacy behind the settlements, seriously, there are far better things for us to spend our diplomatic kind of might on.
We're just about out of time, but I want to get both of your takes. You can start or not on where do we go from here? I mean, simply, what's going to happen next diplomatically?
I don't know what will happen next. I know what I would like to happen next. I would finally like to see an Israeli leader that charts a clear eastern border to Israel, says this is it, we have no more territorial claims beyond this, and that's it, and stop settlements. It doesn't mean we don't have a right to all of the land of Israel, but we need to demonstrate goodwill and to acknowledge that there is another people here.
I would have gotten into detail and asked about the settlement blocks and whether we can still build there. We'll save that for another time. Donnie?
I would say practically reliance on Trump and his administration. I just hope that we will not get disappointed by him.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for this evening. Once again, I think we could have dealt with this for even a longer period. Thanks to Danny Ayalon and Einat Wilf. I'm Steve Leibowitz, and until next time, happy Hanukkah, happy New Year, and thanks for being with us at ILTV Weekly.